This is the Influencer Entrepreneurs Podcast with Jenny Melrose, where I strategize with business owners on how to grow and scale their businesses to hit their income goals. This is episode 226 of the Influencer Entrepreneurs Podcast with Jenny Melrose. Today, I am speaking with Arden McLaughlin, who is actually a local Charlotte publicist. We're going to be talking about how to write a media pitch for local publicity. This is a conversation that I have been dying to have. I got to work with Arden actually spring of 2020 when we were in the midst of COVID and launching my book. And we definitely had to pivot and figure out the best way to go about getting publicity. So I thought that this was a very timely, informational podcast episode to be able to dive into and have this conversation with her because things have changed a bit. So you'll often hear me talking to different podcast guests now about the changes that have happened since COVID. Now, one thing that I want to make sure that I make you all aware of is that what I am doing right now as well is I have started a weekly show on Clubhouse. So if you're not there, definitely get over there because what I am doing is I'm having podcast guests that have already been on the podcast and we're continuing the conversation. And the reason that I thought it was important to do this is because our businesses have changed since COVID. So a lot of the conversations that we are having are strategies that are specific to what you need to be doing now. So I hope you guys will join me over on Clubhouse. When you get there, just search Jenny Melrose and I will come right up. My show is every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. You can jump in, come up to stage, ask any questions that you have to the guests. So instead of me saying, send them a DM, now you can actually get up there and ask them right in that moment. As always, you guys, I want you to make sure that if you haven't grabbed my pitch cheat guide, I want you to make sure that you grab that. We're going to link to it in the show notes, as well as you can always send me a DM on Instagram at Jenny_Melrose to be able to just let me know that you want that download. Just tell me pitch cheat guide and I will send it to you. All right, let's dive in. Hi, Arden. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you doing?
I am great. I am super excited about this conversation. Before we really dive into the meat of it all, will you introduce yourself and your business?
Yes. So, hey, everybody. I am Arden McLaughlin. I own a publicity firm called Definita, where Definita is a made-up word based on define. And I'm all about helping you define yourself in a cluttered marketplace. And I now, thank you, pandemic, do this two different ways. One, I work one-on-one with people who want me to get them press. Or two, I teach people how to get their own press, especially with things changing so quickly, income, finances, all that stuff changing quickly. I wanted to give people two options.
Perfect. No, I think that that is super smart. And I think a lot of us have had to pivot with everything that has gone on. And you have done a beautiful job at that. So
thank you.
I really want to talk about the media pitch. Like, how do we truly get publicity for ourselves locally? But I think before we even begin to dive into writing the media pitch, what do we need to know about our business and audience beforehand?
So what you really need to know is who your target audience is and what you want them to do with your media pitch. Because what you're doing whenever you address anyone in the media is, especially if it's traditional media, but it's also with podcast. I mean, people think media and pitching and they're like, I want to get on TV. Mm-hmm. To back up and go, is TV even my audience? Where we're starting to lose trust, unfortunately. So I'm trying to teach trust too, but people are losing trust with TV. And so I know we're recorded, but TV. So is it podcast? Is it someone that you really relate to? Podcast popularity is growing exponentially. Is it a great magazine article? Is it an online magazine article? So there's all sorts of things that you need to think, where is my audience hanging out? So that's your first thing. Where is my audience hanging out when it comes to what I call traditional media? The second thing is, who talks best to that audience? And then you start to put your pitch together. So I really teach and walk through either my clients or with my courses to really understand your goal before you do anything else. Because you want to then approach the person, what's dying, but I also think is still living. Journalists tend to tell you, I hate media releases, never send me a media release again. But the thing is, for you need a media release, all of you. So you need that media release, the who, the what, the when, the where, the how, for that to live on your website, for that to be the full story, because then you can approach the journalist with, hey, this is the part that makes sense for your audience. So that's the next part, right? Like understanding who you're talking to. A morning show audience is most likely going to be different from a midday show to an evening audience. A lot of times your evening, especially that 6 or 7 o'clock news, is straight news. It's whatever happened for the day. It's, especially in the 5 o'clock hour, it's traffic, it's weather, it's all of those things that your audience needs to know tomorrow. Because again, our local news and even our regional news is preparing us, just giving us a snapshot of what's going on in the day. So you're really going to target, especially your audience, Jenny, is going to target that morning show and that midday show. What they're also going to look at is all of these online platforms. A lot of cities, we're in Charlotte, and New York Times just bought one of our online platforms that was once formerly Charlotte Agenda. And at this point in time, everyone's starting to look at local news again. I've been talking about it for 2 years, but local news is important because that's who buys from you. So your audience again. So the next thing is also what we're also looking at, why do you want press? So when you talk about why do you want press, well, if you invented the remote control, that's a really cool story. But if you wrote a book 4 years ago and you just continue to want to get press on it, unfortunately for you, that's a cool story, but for the masses, it's not. So you have to look at why you want it. And then maybe there's a niche for you. Maybe there's a business podcast, business blog, business something that's going to always want to know that you wrote a book. So it's these several steps before you even do the pitch. The pitch, always think of it like this. You're throwing the ball. You know how most pitchers, they want to strike you. You're throwing the ball because you want a home run. And you have to practice and practice and practice. Sometimes I'll have friends of mine or clients or who were former clients say, hey, can you look at this real quick and make sure it hits? Biggest mistake I see is people starting out with, oh my God, I love your article. I think you do such a good job of who you cover and I want to be featured in that. They don't want everyone, like I took a pause there so people could think, oh my gosh, I've totally done that. And it's fine. You think if you schmooze enough, you're going to get somewhere. But that works everywhere else except with press. They just are so busy getting pitched all the time. They need to know that you can speak in a 2-minute soundbite, you know your product, and tell me what you want from me.
Yes, no, absolutely. And I think it kind of goes nicely into the next question I have for you, which is how long should a media pitch be? So you're talking about they don't have a lot of time. You want to get to the point. You don't want to over schmooze them. So what are we talking?
Well, I think you got to hit them in those first 2 sentences. I'm very Southern, so I still start off nice, but I've built relationships with them. So I'm like, hey, hope you're having a great day. Thought this story would be a fit for you. I know your audience is females 35 to 60, and this new product, this new story, this new something really will benefit them this way. So you go through the who, what's the benefit, how will it benefit? Because I want them to know. Then if you've got them hooked, you can say a little bit more. Now there are times that I'll do headers So how in bold, what and where, because sometimes mine can get long. Or I'll cursor with, hey, you know me, I'm usually short and to the point that this is a longer pitch. So read it when you've got the time to do a longer pitch, when you've got a little bit more time. So generally speaking, you need to hit them in bullets. And so it's not as much this long story, it's more the bullet so their eyes can read it. And also another thing is, it's not as much the length, it's make sure your typeface is a little bit bigger. So I'll send media releases in pitch in more like a 14 point or 15 point type with a little bit more space. Because again, they're all reading so much that you want that yours to pop up. Because if their eyes have to adjust too much to it, then they're more likely to pass over it. The biggest one thing, make sure your names are spelled correctly, and that header, that email is what's going to get them. It's please read about your audience this. We try to be cute, and it's not about being cute. It is about here's how it's going to work for you.
Okay, so when you say header, do you mean subject line when you're sending email? Okay.
Email subject line, yes.
All right, so say that one more time, what you would recommend for a subject line, because I think that was a great advice.
I think for a subject line, it needs to be, please read, for immediate release, something like, you need it now. And just say the subject, like, this is a pretzel company that is going to change the world. Or my book benefits your females ages 29 to 30 year audience. It's a little bit longer, but at least they know, okay, this is something I need to open because they don't know you. Now with a me, they have said, Arden, if you send me something, I'll open it. And here's a way to get around that. It's okay to email people and just say, I love the story that you did today. And that's it. The key to really being a good pitcher and getting media coverage is building a relationship. And a lot of times it's simply going, that article you wrote was so good. Or, hey, I had some questions about that. They love it. Like I'll watch one of our local stations every once in a while and they will have something so funny. So I'll send them in and I'm like, girl, y'all are killing me right now. And she's like, oh, thanks. And like, it's not always a transaction. I know you teach this so much, Jenny. It's about building that relationship with them. And if you have a favorite podcast, I hear my podcast people tell me all the time, rate me, write in the comments. If you're really thinking you're going to want to be on that podcast, rate them, get in the comments, share it. That everyone's job depends on that now. So do those things to start to build the relationship to show I'm in it for you. It's not just a transact. It's not just a you buy my product. It's a, oh my God, did you see this story by my friend? She did such a great job. So those things also really build longevity before the pitch ever happens or after the pitch. Like building a relationship is the key to all of this.
Nope, that makes a ton of sense. And I think too, like the example that you gave about the podcast, leaving a rating and review, that's always, of course, what people are looking for. And you can also do just social media wise, because most of the people that are on local news, no matter where you are, they have social media accounts, right? So you can start building that relationship even there. It's funny because immediately when I think of our local area, I think of our local weatherman, who has blown up on Instagram. He is so super cute. And that is like the easiest place to be able to just comment on his stories, comment on his reels that he's doing. Not that you're trying to get on for weather, but I'm just using it as an example. Yes. Yeah.
But that particular station, especially in these morning and noon shows, they're all good friends. So, and they have a good time together. So if you tell him you're liking what he's doing, or you can say, hey, I love what you're doing. I actually have a story. You can slide into their DMs. We talk about doing how much business gets done in the DMs. I get more stories in the DMs because I'll send, especially my freelance writer friends, I'm like, hey, this is a great story for you. 9 times out of 10, it is not a client of mine, but sure as heck will take credit for it because I'll send the pitch. I'm like, oh, that's a great story. That's a great story. And they're like, oh my God, thank you. And again, they'll come to me when you start to build these rapports with people, they'll come to me and say, oh, do you have anything on this? Or I watch them. They do their repeat. That's how you get on that repeat, is just giving them good information.
Right. I love that. It's such an easy way to be able to really build that relationship with them when you are doing it that way. And like you said, it's more authentic and they're likely to come for you again. I know I have a couple different clients that do local TV in the mornings, and they'll do like a craft, and all of a sudden they have a segment monthly where it's like they're getting on and doing a craft each month that's holiday themed or whatever it might be. Because
that's why I was on TV for 15 years. Is I made friends with one of them. I was in a mentor program with the head of the station, and I made sure that I got her as my mentor and in this like big program. And then she was like, oh, this is a cool idea, because I was in books. This is how I got known for books. She introduced me to the anchor that liked books, and he and I concocted this idea, and people loved the segment. So that's the flip side, is people loved me and they loved the segment, and they were like, oh my God, you're giving me books. I don't have to think about books for the next 3 weeks or whatever. I made it easy and I showed up prepared. And once you get that spot, I know we'll talk about that in a minute, but I showed up prepared and I over delivered, which is what all of us have to do. And one thing I do want to mention, Jenny, is as we continue to get on this, like, people are so against the media. Oh my God, the media. The number one tip I would say is stop saying the media is trash, or stop saying the media is the enemy. And especially on social media, because somebody's going to come look at that and go, why am I going to put you on when you've been trashing my business? Now, you may be talking about one particular massive station that you don't like, but every single one of these people are the media, and they're people too. And I think that's just this like disconnect of 95% of people in that industry are just local people doing great jobs, trying to do good work, seeking stories every day. So depending on people watching them, their job depends on us, depending on people reading them, depending on all of that. So when we as the public start bashing that, we do this whole disconnect. I'm a journalism major and we studied it forever. Like, the real job of the media is sharing the news. Yes, there's some bias. Yes, there's some issues. Yes, everyone's blurring the lines at this point in time. But if you're a small business, or if you're any kind of business and you're wanting these major partnerships, you're wanting these major partnerships with major companies that you teach people to do, making sure that you're not causing a rift with anybody is a big deal. Very important.
Yes, no, absolutely. So when it comes to, we got to do the who, the what, and tying it in when we're writing our pitch, right? Now, how do we determine who to send the pitch to?
Well, so that's a great question, and it's so multifaceted. It's who is doing it. A lot of times I always say, start with your local TV stations. Just, they're really easy to find. And most of them have websites that you can go on and look for either story idea or find your favorite anchor. And like, one of the shows in Charlotte right now doesn't have a key producer. So generally it's the producers or the assignment editors that are the ones making the ultimate decisions. However, those are harder to find. So that's where you ask the questions and say, hey, I love watching you. I've got a story. Who makes the decisions on who gets on your show? Sometimes it's the anchors, and sometimes it's the assignment editors or the producers or something like that. So asking that question, and then sometimes it's just sending it out individually, but also sending it out to all the major stations. I would do that first. Then I would also look at your newspapers, because most of our newspapers also have some sort of online platform. Mm-hmm. What I would not do is pay for anything, because if you're there's paid media and earned media. And so when we talk about PR, we talk about earned media. And somebody's going to come back to you with some magazine that as long as you pay for ads for 6 months, you can get a feature, which is fine. It's just not what you're trying to do. If you're trying to get a one-time story, you've got an event coming up or something like that. You don't want to do, that's not what we're talking about. We're simply talking about, I have a book coming up. I have an event coming up. I'm trying to be an expert in this. I want to be known with traditional media. So finding the person that covers your area, there's an education reporter, a business reporter, healthcare reporter, searching that. There's a very expensive database you could buy. I would not, if you're not going to try to do that. The other thing is maybe call a PR person and say, hey, can I buy a list from you? Most of us have what we call, we have our databases. Buying a list is actually really helpful because you get name, what they cover, email address, if they are or not a PR contact. And you can, I have access through my list. I have Jenna Bush's email because somebody was like, I really want to be on this show. Now, getting through to Jenna Bush is tenacity, but it's still, I can get Jenna Bush's email, Hoda Cobb's email, all of these like home and family. So sometimes it's just asking a PR person, like, can I buy a list from you? We don't give out lists. We don't give out our personal list because but we surely, if somebody wants to buy a list from me for $100, $150 based on what it is, yeah, that's fine. I'm just sharing the wealth. I actually think that's a better way to spend your time than having to dig through everything because it's a list that I can pull pretty quickly and disseminate for you. But if you don't have the resources, I teach people all the time, watch it. Search social media. Watch your local TV. We spend so much time on social media when we could watch a local TV station and get a ton more information than like scrolling. Every time I teach a class, and I'm like, who has time to watch local news? I got no time. I'm like, okay, how much time did you spend not scrolling on Facebook, not doing business on Instagram or Facebook or Pinterest, scrolling? So you do have 30 minutes to watch local news. And local news is in 30-minute captions. Your newspapers are you can read them in 10-minute kind of things. So just start to retrain your time a little bit and do your own research.
That makes a ton of sense. So are there best practices for following up on a media pitch?
Yes. I always give it a couple of days. And I will say, and I'll change the subject line. I will keep the pitch in the bulk of the email the same. But I will say, did you see this? Or RE, like regarding something like that, the pitch. And then I'll say at the top, hi, I know you get a ton of information. This event is coming up. My book is coming out, whatever it is. Did you see this? Pitch below. And I will do that for 2 or 3 times every couple of days. Just because things get lost. And especially when I follow up the second or third time, they're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry I've been sick. Or, girl, I always get back to you. Or I just totally get ignored. Things are busy. That's why I try to send different pitches to different stations, because the other thing is I don't want, once one story got picked up, I don't want them to think, oh, I'm totally going to get the same story from them too. So pick a story and stick with it with that station, with that newspaper, with that online blog, with that podcaster. Because the other thing is most of us don't live in towns big enough that all of the media people don't know each other. And they do know each other and they will laugh at our pitches. They have taught in my classes and saying, oh yeah, we know when the people that send the same pitches to everybody, we laugh at how long they are and, or don't do that. You're black. I'm like, they're not being mean. They were like going hard because they were teaching my students and they wanted them to know, but they were like, even a little bit of tweaking changes the game for me. And so that's the bit too, is one to make you, and always just pick one part, one to make sure you saw this part because I think it'll impact your audience, because always impact your audience. Every time my media people teach, they always say impact your audience, tells me you know my audience and you know that it is my goal to impact them.
Right. Yes. And that's also, I think, the perfect time in between those follow-ups to be able to engage on social media.
Yeah.
To be able to say, hey, I just saw this segment that you did, loved it, send a DM, click on Instagram.
Yeah.
Because it does. It makes them recognize you and seeing the DM and then connecting it to the email that's in their inbox.
Yeah. Yeah. Because again, I mean, it's like everything else. We're all trying to do 35 different things in the day. And the more we start to, I call it dropping breadcrumbs. I'll watch people and I'm like, they're up to something and they're dropping breadcrumbs. So all we're doing is dropping breadcrumbs for them too, is say, remember me, remember me. And that's part of your media plan, is thinking about how do I want them to remember? And then if they don't answer, don't badmouth them. Just think somebody else will. Live in that abundance. And I think a lot of us spend so much time at being negative, which is actually what the next thing I'm going to say is live in abundance. The other thing is watch your social media and watch your interactions at all times. Because if you're the person who really wants press, but you're caught talking junk about other people around town, or you're always like on social media, most of our press don't want that. They don't want to be associated with that. And it, just like a job employer is going to go look at your social media at some point in time, most likely press is going to too. So that's where you're just living in this like positive abundance. It's a really, really hard season for all of us. We're however many months we've been doing this, our lives have completely changed. But everyone's life has completely changed. So just doing the best you can resonates with everyone. Living in that possibility, living in I want to provide a service to you. I'd love you. I'd love to, again, just living in positivity changes the game for press. Your public image, I'm really leaning into, Jenny, like what does it look like for your public image to be your public relations? And that's something I'm just studying right now and going, how do these people constantly get press? Or, wow, do I need to be doing more of that? Or just those sorts of things, and watching their public image and going, oh, that's what they're doing differently. And, oh, that's a cool idea. I could do that for my clients. And I'm just really on this beat of like, be nice. Just be nice. The level of being nice and how far it goes is tremendous.
Yes. And I think when you really hone in and know what problem you're solving for your own audience, that you're then trying to solve for the press that you're trying to get with those people, it just makes it that much easier translation for sure for the press.
Yeah.
So once an opportunity has been landed, how do we make sure the opportunity is used to its fullest potential?
Oh, God, this is my favorite part, because this is where most people miss the mark. And it's no fault of their own, but it's also, we're all guilty of it. Even me, who had spent Sunday putting 10 media clips on my website, because I kept saying, I'm going to redo it. And I need to redo it. But it's like, sis, put those media clips on your website. What we do, you have the media, you have the clip, you have the interview, you have the whatever. As soon as you have it, you've got to get your phone. I'm holding my phone because I'm such an ADHD that I have to like be part of the process. Hold up your phone, do a social media live, do a recording of it while you're doing the recording. Oh my gosh, I'm getting ready for it. So tease it. Then once you have it, once you've done it, talk about it afterwards. And when I say talk about it afterwards, talk about your experience. Talk about how much fun you had with that person, what you learned. Then make sure you get a clip, get a copy, get whatever, and share it. And share it again. Share it as, oh my gosh, guys, this clip was so fun. Tag the people who were in the clip. Most importantly, put it on your website, because the more press you get, the more, like, I always have people start at local press, because the more you show you can get local, the more regional starts to get interested, the more national starts to get interested. That's where you start to build this portfolio of being an expert. Is I'm putting clips on everything. And that goes back to the original is why I write a new media release, is because even if the press doesn't love that media release, the media release still sits on my website and I still can link to it. A lot of times I'll have a pitch and then link to the media release. That still gives me, I had a media release and it looks more professional. So you've got that release. Maybe you have your brand kit or your media kit or something like that on your media page. We have all those things on our blogs and all those sorts of things where brands can work with us. Also put where you've gotten press, put that clip on there, and then take maybe a quote out of it and put it on your social media. Things like that, continue to share, add it to your newsletters. Hey guys, I was featured here. Any different way to share. And it's not bragging. That's where people really miss the mark. And the way you do it without feeling like you're bragging is say, I am so grateful to blah, blah, blah for interviewing me, for hosting me. What a great experience to get to talk about something I'm passionate about. Because we do see people like, oh my gosh, guys, they had me on TV. I'm the best. And most of us are turned off by that. I can guarantee you, because working with Jenny and knowing her personality and you guys working with her, that's not your style. Your style is gracious, humility, and excited. And you can be all those things while also talking about what you got. Because at the end of the day, none of us got this by ourselves, but we did. We're so grateful for it. And you still get the same amount of traction and the same amount of SEO bump and everything else by being gracious. And that gives other media people, they're like, oh, we got a plug out of it. They got, oh my gosh, I want them to come back because they talked about us and they were lovely. And again, the nicer you are, the more they want people to come back to you.
Right. It's that long-term collaboration that you're building, that partnership to be able to have the opportunity to come back for sure. Yeah. So I love that. Yes. So good. So Arden, you have put together so that my listeners can have 1 month free in your PR club. We're going to link to that in the show notes and they can use the code Jenny. Again, it'll be in the show notes so that they all have it. But can you talk a little bit about your PR club and what they can expect to find there?
Yes. So the PR club started in late 2020. And so what happened with press in 2020 is we all started really watching it. And we all started really watching how social media, how the world around us impacts press. This was not new. We were just bored in the house, and we started seeing the correlation. We also started seeing the power of the press, and how it can indicate how things go, right? Like I always laugh, like you want the press when you're having a snowstorm or when you're having a hurricane or when a tornado is coming through, but when things are a little bit sticky, suddenly the press is the enemy. So we got to get over that. Like we actually had a new relationship with press because we entered a pandemic where no one knew anything. So everyone feels a responsibility to get out information as quickly as they can because none of us know what's going on. Again, they knew no more than we did. So what I started seeing was, and I had, we had a big launch with you. And I was like, the people that had things launching when COVID started still break my heart. So every person who's like, I did great in 2020. I'm like, well, what about all my like I do. We're working on this, but I take everything a lot more personally than I probably should because I'm like, but they had this. But what I started to learn was how quickly we need to be able to pivot and how quickly I want to be able to look at the people I work with and say, okay, this is not what we dreamed up. However, we can change this. We can make the most of it. And I was able to do that with my clients as best I could in a world pandemic. But then I started looking and taking note and going, there's a lot of people who are losing a lot of things. There's a lot of people that cut their retainers. Don't do retainers anymore. I personally used to make year-long plans with people. I no longer make year-long plans. We create our structure, and then we do check-ins every couple of months to say, hey, where are we? Do we need to shift? because that's how I feel like that's the best way for me to operate and to be able to serve. And in the middle of all that, I started seeing that we're so isolated, and I wanted to build community. And by building community was getting people around a Zoom call as best we can and talking about the one thing I love, which is PR and getting money for your story. Because I'm the publicist who goes, if you come into my course, if you work with me, my goal is for you, if you do everything I say, for you to make the money back, make your investment back. That's not always guaranteed, but again, I'm going to give you the checklist. So if you don't put it on your website, if you don't talk about it on social media, then I can't be responsible for that. And all of these things I started seeing, there's so many things missing. There's so many people that just have one question. So I created the club, and the club is $47 a month. And we talk about different topics of PR during a 1-hour Zoom call that month. I put you in my Facebook group, which is really a group of past clients or current clients, and to talk about, I'll throw up, here's a press opportunity that like 10 of you could really take advantage of. Pop in. I don't do the pitching for you, but I coach you on how to do the pitching. And what I wanted with this club was for people to be able to ask me questions and interact with each other on whatever the latest topic is with PR. So in February, so at the beginning of this year, I started noticing a lot of us are stuck on Zoom calls. And we've been lucky enough to grow to an almost national presence because we're able to connect in so many ways, but our energy is so low. We're not closing out deals. We're boring people with our presentations. We're on lives because our coach tells us to be on lives and get on a live because you need to be on a live, but you're getting on a live and you're not prepared. You're not making the most of it. And so I was like, here's what I'm seeing right now. No one shows up to Zooms anymore prepared. You threw together the slides 5 minutes ago because you remembered you had to do it. Change that. I gave tips on that. Have energy. I was going through, when I presented this, some of the worst depression I had been through, yet I still had to have energy for that class. I do my tips on how to boost up your energy for the 30 minutes. It's 30 minutes. I know every person who was in there who was like a therapist was like, yes, but be in your feelings. And every time someone's like, yes, but be in your feelings, I'm like, who's going to pay the bills, guys? It's me. I can't be in my feelings all the time. So how to acknowledge that I don't feel good. What do I put on? And generally I'm going to put on Hamilton, not throwing away my shot, because I'm sure as heck not throwing away my shot for this. And then the last thing was really and truly a call to action. Jenny, do you know how many people are on a live and they have a captive audience, and then the audience is like, what do I do?
Right. 100%. This is one of the biggest things we talk about. Anything social media wise, having to have a call to action.
Having a call to action. But that call to action doesn't have to be major. It can honestly be share this video. But you've got them, but we miss that. We miss it in a Zoom. We're sitting there in a conference and it's our turn to present to our networking group or whatever. And at the end, they're like, well, how do we work with you? Oh, I didn't do that for you to work with me. You sure as heck better have, even if it's just guys, you know what? Right now, I just think you should join my PR club. All of that goes into the PR club. I have some of my people come in who talk to you about how to pitch better, or how to create a community strategy plan, or what's going on Instagram Reels, or what's going on with whatever the latest things are. Because the things are always changing, right? And you guys, and the thing is, when I bring in partners, I bring in other people that are doing it really well. And it's always PR related. So even if I bring in a sales coach, it's how to make sure your presentations sell, right? Like all of these sorts of things. And so that's what the club is. And then it's put into the library. And so you have access to all of them as long as you are in the club. And I locked in on this $47 price because I was like, you know what? I want people to feel like they have something, and it's completely over delivering for them. I think there's this, and let's be honest, I'm getting something out of it because I get to gather with people that I love. last month, only one person was able to show up. So instead, she's in my course and she got 30 minutes of additional coaching because she had a presentation and she was trying to like maximize Clubhouse. And so we did coaching instead. And then I recorded it and put it in the group later, because that's what I believe as a person of integrity, I want to do for people too. So the club is the presentation and then it's coaching. It's really and truly, now I do have an up level of like $97 a month where you get 30 minutes of additional coaching. But the 47, to get in there with a group of people, and I learned that during COVID, was just every time someone asked me for time to chat, I'm like, yeah, I would love that. But the more I got into these groups and to hear, what about this? What about this? I started to see lights coming together and to start to see this one could work with this one. So it's almost like a way to connect with like-minded people as well, who you maybe work with. So
perfect. No, I love it. That is great. So we're going to make sure that we link to that in the show notes so that everyone can take advantage of that. Arden, where else can people connect with you? What are the best places?
Well, definitely on Instagram. I am, Instagram is my favorite, and I know it's yours too. Is it still your favorite? Because you're in Clubhouse, but Clubhouse stresses me out. Maybe one day it won't. But I love Instagram. So I'm at Arden_McLaughlin. I do have the Definita. I just hold that for my own sake if ever I want to do it. But I do like, because I do love coaching people. I love getting people pressed, but also love coaching. I think working on the Arden_McLaughlin is a great way to get in touch with me. Or then just honestly email me and say, let's chat. I'm always down for a 15-minute conversation to just chat, maybe 30. It just depends on what we need to talk about. But I love just chatting. Honestly, a 30-minute chat with somebody that you just don't know and them going, oh, that'd be cool. That's so fun for me because I am an extrovert dying in a house, in a place by myself. And anytime I can talk to someone and put on makeup and like look like a decent person is wonderful. Because I think we're struggling. And I know that like it's spring at this point in time and life is coming back, but I just think there's still this in the back of our head. Are we going to be shut? Is something going to happen? Is something going to happen? I think that's a real thing for us now. And every time the phone rings or I hear from someone, I'm like, we're just different and we need life around us.
No, absolutely. So we are going to make sure that we link to both of those in the show notes. People can definitely get in contact with you. I appreciate you so much for taking the time to speak with me and my audience.
Oh, I love your audience. I love the work you guys are doing, and you've really built a cool community. And I tell you this, but I'm mostly like, you inspire me to do so many things. I'm like, oh, she's so smart. Look at how she did that. And so yeah, I love it. You get copied by me.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. All right. Well, there you have it. I hope that you have a better idea now of how to get that local publicity for you, that it doesn't need to just rely upon traditional media, but also think about podcasts. Podcasts are a great way to get your business, your story out there. As always, I appreciate you guys listening in. If you have not already left me a rating and review, I would so appreciate it if you took the time to do so. It helps me get great guests. They look to see how many ratings and reviews I have received. So that is a great way for you to be able to help hear from the best experts that are out there. All right, you guys, until next time, I will see you all then.